Hi everyone, welcome. My name's Nick Best and I'm just going to spend a little bit of time going through some of the questions about the T4 exam that we've had in on our Facebook page. I'm going to go through some of the questions that have come in over the last few months since the end of the last exam. Some specifically have been posted here on an Ask Me a Question, so I should go through those. And we've just had some others over the last few months as well, most of which I've replied to on the Facebook post, but I thought might be quite useful just to spend a little bit of time putting down in a video. Sometimes it's easier to sort of hear and understand the ideas when you sort of hear it and see it. So what I'm going to do, go through those questions, give you a quick answer to the questions and also give you some other sort of hints and tips as we approach the exam. Okay, so where should we start? So let's go down here then. Actually, simple question. If we go down, here we go, coming back to April time. Farhad asked here, what should be the minimum for quality word counts? Okay, sort of strange question. I assume that what Farhad means is what's the minimum number of words I should put in a script? And that's a really important point. Is, as you see, my answer that I've got there, 2,900 minimum. I got that figure because about, what would it be, about two and a half years ago, at the end of the exam, we do an analysis of people's scripts and the issues order. And what people do is they go onto a spreadsheet and they write down the order they got the issues in. And one thing that we get people to do is to write their word count down. And then subsequently, probably about a third of people go in later on, 3 weeks later, when they get the results and put their results in. And we get to see what the word count was against what the actual result was. And absolutely, there's a direct correlation between more words and higher marks. And the key thing that was so surprising on this particular case was that everybody, literally everyone that had written less than 2,900 words had failed, and everybody that had written more than 2,900 words had passed. That does not mean that 2,900 words means, yeah, I've got that, I will pass. Of course, if your quality is poor, you will not pass. Also, I've known people write as little as 2,300 words and pass, but it's rare. The long and short of it is, if you've not got the words down, there's not much to write, to mark, and as a marker, it's very hard to allocate marks. It needs to be truly superb if it's less than 2,900 words. 2,900 minimum, look, ideally you'd be 3,500 to 4,000 words. Okay, so key first point there from Farhad. And that was linked in as we kind of go up. You notice, I mean, do take a look at my hints and tips as we go through here. But linked into a question from Lindsay as well. Lindsay said here, thanks Nick, self-mark one of your mocks today. And my comment was, how on earth did you write all of that in 3 hours? Lindsay, as I've said down below, our mock solutions are not aimed to be what you would do in 3 hours and 20 minutes. We aim to provide a full mock that would probably get something like 90% in the real exam. Most of our mocks are about 5,000 to 6,000 words. The idea is that what you can then do is when you review, you can see all the different sorts of points that you could have raised in a more complete answer. If we just did a pass mark, you'd probably pass mark script of 3,000 words. You'd probably look at it and think, well, that's not all that great. And actually, there's not many points I can pick up on there. We do aim for our solutions to give you loads of really good, this is what an ideal script would look like. So just beware that if you're getting around 3,000 to 3,500 words, you're probably along the right kind of lines in terms of length to pass. 3,500 to 4,500 is where you'd be looking at more like 60%ish, 70%ish. Okay, so so don't look at our mock solutions and think that. Lindsay actually put another comment on to another one here, and she was talking about time management. I've done 4 of your mock exams and only finished 1 within the time. Seem to forget about the 1B question as well. Look, 2 points about that is you must be really disciplined on your timing and your time management. There when I'm teaching courses, I go on and on and on about this amount of time for this section and this section and this section, and do not deviate from those times. It was interesting. I was just doing a course this weekend. I was talking to, one thing I say more than anything else where you must control your time is your calculations. No more than 20 minutes on calculations, whatever. Anyone that's been trying our Mock 6, you will know there's more than 20 minutes of calculations in Mock 6. In most real exams, there's more than 20 minutes of calculations. You should go into the exam expecting not to complete calculations. In fact, you should go into the exam expecting not to write a brilliant section anywhere, because you simply don't have the time. This is not a report at work that you've got 2 or 3 days over. You've got 3 hours and 20 minutes, and that's it. Okay, so coming back to that then, you must look at each of your subsections and stick to the times of each of those subsections and never go over. So, here on our website, this is under the free exam guide section, under the T4 section of the website. You've got a little video from me there. But down here I've got for you my timings, and you must stick to those timings very, very precisely. If you are doing the PC based exam, you can slightly deviate in that you can combine your report section writing with your recommendation section writing. So the top 2 issues then, for instance, the first issue is 14 minutes of analysis and then 12 minutes of recommendations. You can do one and then the other together. Besides that, these sections here, you must stick to those timings spot on. Do not deviate. I had a student who he emailed me a little bit like Lindsay, except you wouldn't believe that he said, I've done 50 mocks. This was not one sitting. This was over many, many sittings. He'd failed many, many times. I've done 50 mocks and I have not finished one yet. And he'd not finished any of the real exams yet either. And so I said to him, I said, just do one. Get these times and just stick to those times and send it in to me, and I'll take a quick look for you. He wasn't on our course or anything. It was just an email sent to me. So I just said, I'll take a quick look through you. And he absolutely stuck to those times. And what was interesting was he completed the report for the first time ever. And the only reason was that when he was getting to the end of the times, he just stopped. So for instance, he'd get to the end of the analysis section, first one, 14 minutes. This is not 50 minutes as a whole, by the way. This is 14 minutes for the first one and then 14 minutes for the second. He just stopped and he moved on. And what then happened was that script was, well, I was looking at it, I didn't mark it in full, I just took an overview. It was basically virtually a pass. It was right on the pass mark in my sort of high-level overview review. And yet here was someone that had said he'd never finished a script before. And finishing the script is the most important thing you will do on the exam day. So you must complete that script. Okay, look. So he managed to complete it by sticking to those times and sticking to the times really precisely. 11 minutes here, 14 minutes, and 12 minutes, and 8 minutes on each of those issues. And being absolutely disciplined. And going back to my story about the calculations section, the student that was in the course on the calculations section, he said, oh yeah, when I was doing my mock exam, do you know what happened to me? I spent the 20 minutes and I stopped. And then I got later on down to the main body of the report and I thought, do you know, I need that extra calculation. I'll go back and do it. And by the time he'd finished it, he'd spent another 20 minutes. He'd then spent 40 minutes on calculations in total. He got to the end of the exam, and of course what happened, he got to the bottom, part B, and part B wasn't done. And so he missed out on a whole 10 marks, 10 easy marks, for the sake of maybe 2-3 marks of calculations. Absolutely never worth it. This exam is best done by getting a few marks on every section. As soon as you miss one section out, you are dramatically reducing your chances of passing. Okay, so that kind of deals with the word count and Lindsay's comment there. So we come up to specific questions then. We'll start at the bottom. Okay, first question that came in was from Roland. Roland says, I'm taking the paper-based exam. Is it going to make a difference to my mark whether I have a title page and contents or not? You know, I get asked this question quite a lot. Do I need terms of reference? Do I need this? In fact, some tutors, it depends where you've studied, but some tutors say, oh no, don't bother with it. It just takes time and you don't get marks for it. Well, that's not strictly true. Integration marks, of which there are 5 integration marks, go for the quality of your report as a whole, your structure, setting it all up, the contents page, the terms of reference, the conclusion, and so on. And from that point of view, I know when I'm marking, if someone hasn't got those things, I just give 1 less integration mark. So it's one of those things that you don't get a lot of extra marks, but if you just don't have it, then you won't get the marks. So I would definitely recommend including them, particularly as they're just easy to do and incredibly quick to do. They're some of the easiest marks not to lose on the paper. So I wouldn't recommend leaving those out. I would recommend doing them, but doing them quick and briefly. Just make sure they're there. I know when I'm marking, I don't really look at them as such. I skim them, and as long as they're there and they look like they're reasonable, then that's enough. So make sure that you do that. Okay. So the other thing which is important about this is that it makes a difference to the feel of your script. When you get a script that just starts with the first prioritization section, it gives a bad first impression. You've already made a bad impression with the marker because they're thinking, well, what's going on here? This doesn't look very good. And you have to then overcome that impression. Your script looks like it shouldn't be a good report. And it shouldn't be something. And another question is that at work, would you do it and just send it in half completed like that? Well, absolutely not. Again, integration marks come into that. There's a number of reasons then why I would suggest, yes, you do that, Roland. Okay, let's have a look at Manoj's question here. So some situations lead to very little discussion in the analysis section, and one tends to specify the actions. Okay, well, okay, the way Manoj has put that is that's what Manoj does. That's not actually necessarily what everyone would do. So I would just say that. What I'd also say is I don't actually agree. I do think that there are some issues where there's more to write about, absolutely. But actually, if you follow a standard structure, then you're looking for, if it's typewritten page, you're looking for about 1.25 pages for your analysis section. And by the time you've started off with a brief introduction to the issue, 2 to 3 lines, then you've got 2 to 3 paragraphs of what's the impact of this issue. Even if there's not a lot in there, you can definitely get 2 paragraphs by the time you've talked about the financial impact, the impact on the key stakeholders, you've talked about the strategic impact and the link through to the SWOT analysis and the strengths and weaknesses and the strategic position. By the time you've done that, you've definitely got 2 paragraphs on any issue. Then by the time you've picked up on 2 or 3 options for solving that problem, you've easily covered 1.25 pages. And I cannot honestly, Manoj, ever remember when I've been writing mock answers struggling to get up to 1.25 pages of analysis. In fact, my typical problem, it goes back to the problem of trying to write full answers, is at times I'm having to try and stop writing as much because I'm writing too much. So what I will say about your point is you should not start making recommendations in the analysis section. You should list out what the possible actions are and the advantages and disadvantages of those, and then only in the recommendation section make your conclusion. Otherwise, you've already covered your recommendations and why you're doing it before you get to that point. So, okay, let's just see what else he says here. How to tackle these situations and the recommended length of each section. I presume I'm spending too much time here, leaving me short of time in other sections. I've kind of answered that then. So about 1.25 pages of a typed text. It's probably a bit longer if you're writing your answer out. So, yeah. Okay, so let's go on to CB's question here. Where does YJ fall according to Porter's 3 generic strategies and why? I'm going to be extremely quick on this. I have to say this is the first case in years where I said, look, don't go worrying about Porter generic strategies. For anyone that doesn't remember, that's cost leadership, differentiation and focus. You've studied it throughout your studies up to this point. I love the generic strategies and I always use it in T4 except for this year. The reason being is it's oil and gas. And oil and gas is what's under the ground. We can't improve the quality of that. And it's very hard. We're just selling on the market and delivering it to the local port. And so therefore, we're not providing better service. It's harder to provide and improve a product. Therefore, quality and service and all those differentiating factors are irrelevant. Can we focus on a particular market? Well, maybe we could focus on certain companies, but the reality is we're just selling on the market. And so we're not really applying any focus, and it's very hard to find a focus because it's such a generic product with such a high demand worldwide. And so when it comes down to it is, do we follow cost leadership? Well, do you know what? No, because we just sell on the market, really. Obviously, what we would like to do is keep our costs to a minimum and be efficient. And so the reality is almost everyone's following a cost leadership strategy, but not to be successful competitively, which is what the model is about. It's just that increases our profits because we basically have a higher margin if we've got lower costs. So CB, Porter generic strategies for YJ isn't the best of models. So I wouldn't go bothering with it in this particular case. Now, Rachel has asked an excellent question here. Okay. I'm a little confused on the recommendations section, Rachel says. You advise in the justification section to repeat yourself from your analysis section as this is expected. But then in the peg, it says, do not do this as little marks will be awarded as they will have already been awarded in the earlier section. Can you just clarify this for me? Yes, I can, Rachel. And I don't want to go disagreeing with the examiner. I'll tell you a quick story first off. Back in 2007, I went to the Top CIMA conference, and it was all the tutors from all around the country. There's about 40 of us there that taught T4, Top CIMA as it was then called. 2 examiners there. There's always an examiner team for T4. It's not just one examiner. And the 2 examiners at the time were there, and this exact question was asked, is in the justification section of recommendations, surely it's just repetition. And the examiner then said, yes, it is. And of course, there will be some repetition there. And that's what we expect. So ever since then, I have said to people, OK, look, there will be some repetition. Of course, there's going to be repetition because in the analysis section, you are analysing, say, the advantages and disadvantages of something. But in the recommendations, you are then justifying why. So you're making some of the same points. Now, ever since then, I've said, yeah, you do need good justification. In 2010 and 9 and 10, when I wrote the learning system with one of those 2 examiners that was there, then she kept on saying justification is vital. And of course, the justification is just reanalyzing some of the stuff you've said earlier. Now, there is a key difference, and the difference is that when you are analysing it, you are making a conclusion. You are drawing your points together. So let's say we had benefits of outsourcing, and we said, well, expertise, lower cost, flexibility, just off the top of my head, those 3. And you've analysed those up above, and maybe you've given some of the disadvantages. Then when it comes to the recommendations, you must not just copy and paste the same text because you won't get more marks for that. You must draw that together, and you must say, well, on balance, given our lack of expertise in this area, we have little choice but to go down the outsourcing route. Combine that with the lower cost offering, then the disadvantages of it might be something like their lack of motivation for our business because they're an external company and having to control them and so on, contractual issues, those kind of things. They outweigh those negatives, and therefore I am concluding that we go down this route. So you're kind of summing up the same points, and that's the difference between the analysis section and recommendation section. But let me add one other thing as well. And the other thing I wanted to add is that back since 2010 and 2007, just in the last year, I've noticed this as well, Rachel, that the examiners have slightly changed their view. And if you look at the examiner's answers, what's happened is a subtle difference, and that's that the justification section has got a little bit shorter, and you've had these kind of comments in the peg, and the action points have gone a bit longer. And so what I would say in conclusion is, firstly, definitely do a good strong justification, but do it where you are kind of summing up and concluding on your points and saying, well, why the advantages are better than the disadvantages. But secondly, add more to your action points, at least 4 action points, and try to get those at least 3 lines long each, saying who's going to do it, when they're going to do it, and how they're going to do it. And make action points critical, key part of your answer. So there has been that shift, and the shift is to more action points. And please don't forget, the recommendation section is the most important section. It's the section, again going back to when I was working with the examiner a few years ago, when it's the section when what she said that if there's a something close to the pass mark, a script close to the pass mark, that all those go back to the examiner away from the original marker to do a review of. It's the recommendations section which was most important to her when deciding who should be passed and who should be failed. You do need an excellent recommendation section. A typed script, at least 3/4 of a page, ideally a page each. And this means really expanding on it. And in the current trend of things, really expanding on the action points. But while we're on action points very quickly, there are some typical type of action points commonly used. And they are things like, well, first thing often you should do is say, look, go to the board to make an agreement. Okay, because you're making a recommendation in the report, that needs to be agreed before you go ahead. Set up a project team is often important for new kind of projects and things like that. Financing and funding, of course, you are writing to the finance director, so actually in the action point, that's often an important thing that should be done. So yeah, funding, financing, cash flow analysis is often a common one you can include in there as well. And of course, then you just need to add the specific ones related to that issue, and they will, of course, be different. But if you've got a few bankers like the ones I've just given you, and then add that into 1 or 2 focused ones, say it was an IT system, then it would be, well, maybe we go for a tendering agreement on the IT system, something like that. And then we contract. Contracting is another one you can often put in many issues as well. Okay, so yeah, good. So I hope you found that beneficial. Just gone through some of the key elements on our Facebook page. Please do as well have a look down all the other comments, and can I also, as the exam is approaching now, just wish you the best of luck in the upcoming exam. Okay, yeah, good luck.